G'day again from us sailing on Anacam. This episode, we also sit down with the beautiful Roz and Captain Bazza as they tell us the story about 5 pirates boarding their vessel and they really thought they were going to die. So sit back and listen to their complete story.
Hello, stranger. You know I don't go anywhere without a camera, don't you?
Okay, the 5 gentlemen that came on board your vessel. Can you recall that one for us?
Yeah, well, that was a different situation. We were on the way back to Australia. We'd been delayed because a very unprofessional service, which was supposed to deliver our oil,
also known as UPS,
which was supposed to deliver our heat exchangers to us in Wewak, decided that Port Moresby was close enough. So the stuff went from Sydney to Port Moresby, and Port Moresby is in the other side of Papua New Guinea. There wasn't even a road connecting the two. And the answer was that your oil coolers have been delivered. Well, not very helpful. UPS further assured me that it was illegal for them to deliver them to Wewak, which was again obviously a load of nonsense. And the company in Sydney that we'd bought them from, I'd asked them to send them via DHL because there was a DHL office in Wewak. But they obviously had a contract with this very unprofessional service and put it with them, and yeah. As a consequence of that, we finished up being 6 weeks or so late in our crossing, and the tides had gone against us and the winds had gone against us, and we found ourselves in the Solomon Sea in the middle of a storm, right on the nose, spending 3 days, hove to, within sight of Bougainville, but not game to go in at this point in time because of what we'd heard. And eventually we got on the high frequency radio and called up some friends who knew the area very well, in fact had written some cruising guides about it, and they assured us that Bougainville was fine. The problem was solved, it was okay to go in there. So we went into Bougainville, and within a matter of a few hours, instead of bouncing up and down in the middle of the Solomon Sea, we were anchored behind a beautiful...
More than that, we were actually anchored in a horseshoe lagoon.
It was flat as a tack and peaceful and beautiful and absolutely lovely. And I think that was a Sunday.
Yeah, I think it was.
Sunday we got in there. We didn't see any people, which was strange because we'd been used to people calling by wanting to trade for crayfish or pawpaws or bananas or whatever they might have to sell.
But the people that went past just ignored us. You know, they'd go past in the canoes and stuff, and they just wouldn't even look at us, which was most unusual. They'd all be waving normally and stuff. And it was
come Sunday, we did have a boat with 4 young men come alongside and asked us if we had any petrol, and we explained to them that we didn't have any petrol because the boat ran on diesel.
We had some expats come and visit as well, and they were on their way to have a picnic at this sandy beach that we're at. And, you know, again, they said that things were fine. And I'm sure that things were fine, but it's just that we'd also been travelling loosely in company with somebody that had been arrested in, where was it now?
In Valimo?
No.
No.
Madang.
Madang.
They'd been arrested in Madang and for having guns on board, a gun on board, and his yacht had been seized and his passport had been taken away. And but he did a runner, and he caught up with us opposite Rabaul, anchored in a bay opposite Rabaul. And so we spent a couple of days there with him before the police caught up with him again. And they came onto his boat and it rearrested him, and still left him on his boat. But anyway, we decided that we would leave the next morning. So we left, pulling up our anchor the next morning. There was somebody on the bank saying, "Stop, you know."
Somebody in police uniform carrying a briefcase.
Yeah, so I just waved and said, "Yeah, thank you, bye. It's been lovely," and we went on our way. So we think that what happened next was because the officials had been told that we had guns on board. We think that.
Well, they had come to the conclusion that because Lindsay had one pistol on board, he must have a load of guns on board. He was obviously a gun runner, and therefore he had a lot of guns.
He breached their protocols,
Yep.
When they searched his boat and found nothing of the sort, they put two and two together and decided that he must have transferred the guns to Spirit of Witchwood, which was only anchored about 100 metres away at the time. So when Spirit of Witchwood left early in the morning, they decided that the guns were leaving with Spirit of Witchwood. And we had arrived in Bougainville and anchored there on the Sunday. When we were still there a few days later, by that time they had decided that the guns are on Spirit of Witchwood. If the local officials seize the guns, then the profit will go to Port Moresby. But if a bunch of pirates seizes the guns, then the local profits, the profits will stay local. So we were visited at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday night. A boat came alongside. I went out on deck and looked at the boat, and I recognised it was one of those 24-foot banana boats with a 60 horsepower outboard on it. Fairly normal, usual sort of thing. Bunch of young blokes in it, probably been out crayfishing. Went up, "G'day fellas, how are you?" And then I looked at them again and said, "Hey, you guys, you were here on Sunday. I told you we don't have any petrol." And the response was, A, I had a bunch of machine guns poking in my head, in my face, and B, we don't want no effing petrol. We're gonna steal your boat, steal everything that's on it, and we're gonna kill you. And I looked at him and I said, "That's not very friendly." And the response to that was, "Get into this dinghy." And I said, "No fellas," I said, "this is not just my boat, this is my house as well. And there's no way I'm going to get into your dinghy." "Oh, well, we're going to come on your boat." Well, I said, "I don't think I'm going to stop you doing that." So, and they climbed on board.
But before that, on Spirit of Witchwood, there was this old handle for a, was it the windlass?
Winch? Yeah, anchor winch.
Anchor winch. It was this big old handle that was about this much steel, and there's a nice wood part of it as well. And so I'd heard this ruckus happening up, and I'm thinking, oh, I don't like the sound of this, what's going on? So I got this thing out, pretending it was a gun, what's going on up here? And I've got these bloody guns pointing at me. Oh, it's not a gun, it's not a gun, drop it. Oh, shit. It was a bit scary.
Yeah, well, it got interesting from there on, because one of the younger lads was left on the boat, and a fairly refined looking gentleman, nicely dressed, and three young hoons came on board the boat and proceeded to search the boat from top to bottom, looking for these guns that they knew were on Spirit of Witchwood, because they were no longer on this other boat. When eventually they couldn't find them, the nicely looking gentleman I know, before that even, we were sitting on the top of the boat.
Yeah, they made us sit up in the forepeak, up on the top to start, and because of, I honestly thought we were actually dead. We were going to be killed. Didn't think it was going to end well. So I was probably in a little bit of shock, and I'm shaking and I was a bit scared. And anyway, Baz made them go and get a blanket for me because they thought I was cold. Which they did. So I thought, oh well, maybe I'm not going to die. I'm not going to die after all today. Maybe.
Well, I said to the young bloke that was guiding us, I said, "My wife's cold, go and get her a blanket."
Yeah, so he did.
So he said, "Yes." And went down, got
You
a blanket.
that much control at that point in time.
Brought her a blanket, which wrapped around her and sat there. And then we...
But then they took us, eventually after they'd searched the boat the first time.
Cold here, I said, "We'll move down the cockpit."
Yep.
Oh, okay. So we moved into the cockpit, and then the nicely dressed gentleman who was previously in charge of the search and obviously decided that nothing was forthcoming, came with his gun and sat in the cockpit and guarded us while we had a long discussion that lasted for
4 hours they're on board.
They were on board for 4 hours.
Yeah.
So I mean, we talked about him with him over Australia. He'd been to Canberra. He'd been educated at Australian National University. And I suspected that he was either in charge of the police or in charge of the customs or something along those lines in Bougainville at the time. And he assured us that we were okay, you know, look, just do what the boys say. They're going to steal some stuff because, you know, that's what they get for doing this. But yeah, we were looking for guns and we can't find any of those. And so yeah, we spent a few more hours. But it, you know, it had a few interesting moments. At one stage, Roz was invited to come down and show them where the mobile phone was.
One time, one of them claimed that he was related to royalty and that he was actually going to rule Bougainville one day.
The Queen was going to bow before him.
The Queen was going, and he was telling this story, and I said, look, you know, tell me more about your story, and I'll take it back to our Prime Minister. And I'll give him your story and see what he can do for you. You know, you've got an interesting story, so let's do that. I said, but I'll need pen and paper so I can write it all down. And so we'll go downstairs and, you know, I'll get that. And they wouldn't let us have any lights on. And so I'd gone down there and I said, I'll need a light to find the pieces of paper. Anyway, so I reached up to turn on our little overhead light. And I had hanging from that some crystals. And anyway, he said, I'll do that. And he grabbed it and he pulled down on the crystals and broke it. And they fell everywhere, all over the floor and everything. And he's down on his hands and knees going, I'm so sorry, ma'am, so sorry. And handing them back to me. And I'm thinking, oh, this is crazy. Anyway, so I got the pen and paper. And I said, right, so first of all, I'm going to need your name because otherwise, you know, our Prime Minister won't know who to talk to. And he just looked at me and went, get back upstairs.
It's fairly obvious.
Okay, that's not going to work.
You know he's sucking his into it.
It was fairly obvious you couldn't be famous and anonymous at the same time.
You should have asked them whether they wanted to be on YouTube.
We didn't know about YouTube back in those days.
And then another time, one of them had found our CDs. Was pretty easy to find. They just stacked up anyway. But he's going through it. I'm watching him from up the cockpit.
We had
he's
about
going through
200
his CDs.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going through his CDs and, you know, chucking them all over the place, and eventually he finds one. And he's looking at it, and he comes up and he goes, Kenny Rogers!
and he sticks it in his pocket. And out of 200 CDs, that's the only one they stole.
The only one they took.
Did you let Kenny know?
I think their taste in music and ours was somewhat different.
Did you tell Kenny Rogers that he saved your life?
I was extremely happy to see the Baco one. Didn't like
Oh,
it very
good on
much.
you.
It was one of those $2 CDs.
Yeah.
Kenny Rogers is great, but this CD was terrible.
Look, good on you guys for telling your story.
But yeah, so it was interesting. The phone is the one that got us a little bit.
So what they get away with at the end of the day? What did they actually take off you?
Well, what they didn't take was what looked like was coming down at one stage when they invited Ross to show them, or the prince, show him where the mobile phone had disappeared to.
And look, I'd already seen that had gone, and I said to him, no, you already have that. And he said, no, you show me. So I went down there and said, look, this is where it's supposed to be. And there was this place, bracket that we used to hang it there. And I said, and it's gone, you already have it. He said, no, you go back there. And back there was our aft cabin. I thought, no way, I'm going back there. I don't know what. So I said, oh, no, I feel awful. And I ran up the companionway and grabbed a bucket and pretended I was vomiting into the bucket. And I said to Baz, oh, I think I've soiled myself. and
the guy looked at me and said, what does she mean? I said, I think she shed her pants. And at that point, they thought, time to leave, and they left.
Good on you.
But, yeah, as to what they took,
$3,000 or $30,000 worth.
About $30,000 worth of stuff.
Yeah. Everything that they could move.
Everything they thought that was of value to them.
What they didn't take was the Zodiac dinghy, which was falling apart after a couple of years. because he looked at it and he said, the bottom's falling out. I said, yeah, take it. He said, no, I don't want it.
You got to blame that on insurance.
And other things they didn't take was we'd been carting this stupid video camera around for ages that didn't work, and it was in like it's one of those really old style ones, so it was in a case like about this big, about this, taking up heaps of room, and just didn't work. Baz was always going to get it fixed.
We
Never did. And we'd carried it all over the Pacific with us, bringing it back to Australia with us, still not working. Anyway, the guy found it, he pulled it out, and he said, you show me how this works. And I said, well, it doesn't, it's dead. And he said, oh, okay, and he left that behind.
Oh, damn.
And I thought, how stupid of me. I don't know how it works, you better take it though. It was really valuable.
Oh, dear.
The computers was interesting. We had 2 laptops.
Yeah.
And
They turned one on, and I don't know how I still don't know how he did it. He turned one on and it fired up in safe mode. And so it's just got this screen with safe mode on it. And he said, you show me what's happened with here. What's this mean? And I said, well, you've buggered it up. It's as simple as that. You've buggered it up. It's not going to work anymore. Oh. But you can make it work. And I said, no, she's buggered. You buggered it up. See? Nothing happens with it now. So they left that behind.
So you still had one computer.
You still had one of
they
them.
took the other one, but not
Yeah.
this one,
Yeah.
which was easily fixed. And fortunately, it had our navigation files on it and so
Yeah.
on, so we were able to continue.
And they never found the radio, the HF radio, because of it was up above a cupboard that was
Yeah.
sort of in darkness, so they never found that.
So you still had comms.
Yep.
We did. And the binoculars, we learned
Yeah,
one
never.
lesson.
Yep.
We had an expensive pair of binoculars that we kept for when we really needed it, and we had a cheap pair of binoculars we used for every day, and the
Yeah.
cheap pair of binoculars was in the cockpit.
In the cockpit, in
and
the
the
canvas bag.
expensive pair of binoculars was downstairs, stowed away. Well, they found that and stole it, and they never found the cheap pair, so that was still there. So the lesson from that is use the expensive ones, keep the cheap ones as a backup.
Yeah.
and you know, things like they took the printer and camera. We had a camera,
but not the
they
cables.
didn't take the
Yeah.
cables, so it was all stuff that was useless to them in
Yeah.
the end. Baz's guitar, but he,
Oh, they'd find a buyer for it, those guys.
yeah, true. And they found my essential oils,
God damn.
and they took them. And I
Not
just,
her jewellery.
but not my jewellery. They found it, but they didn't take the jewellery,
No.
and I still don't understand that.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Normally that's one of the first targets
Yeah.
they take.
No, they left that.
And as they departed,
Took all of Baz's clothes, but none of mine.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was left
So
with a
they're
pair of
obviously
shorts.
either homosexual or had no girlfriends, one of the two.
Oh, gold.
The only clothes I had left was the pair of shorts I was wearing while all this was going on. Everything else got removed.
Yeah.
So you were down to Sarongs after that, sure?
God, didn't have any of those left either. And the interesting thing is when they finally did depart, and there's this 24-foot boat alongside piled up like this with our stuff. And on top of it is one of these see-through plastic crates with some boxes of wheat bix in it. And I said to the young fellow, I said, hey, we've got a long way to go. We haven't got any food left. Give me back my wheat bix.
Because they were starting to chuck it out. This stuff.
So they handed back the box of wheat bix.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And then left.
Anyway,
really?
when they left with grog.
Yeah.
They found some grog that they left with as well. So we were a
Including
bit,
some beer.
yeah, we were a bit concerned that if they found that they could come back and decide that they needed to take other stuff. So we
Or
put
do
a
other things.
yeah, we put a pan out after that.
Which was interesting. We put out a pan, which was eventually picked up by Radio Wellington in New Zealand,
Yeah.
or Radio New Zealand in Wellington.
Yeah, I know the station.
Not picked up by AMSA in Canberra. And they sent a helicopter out to a location which was 1 degree.
New Zealand contacted AMSA, and
Yeah.
AMSA contacted Port Moresby, and then Port Moresby
Sent
sent out the helicopter looking for us.
1 degree further than we were.
They got the coordinates a bit wrong.
West, yeah. So nothing happened there. Although the next day there was a.
We eventually had communications with AMSA
Yeah.
and corrected the position.
Yeah.
And then, because it's already a, is it Army base?
Army base. Yeah.
In
in
Bougainville.
Bougainville at the
Yeah.
time.
There was, yeah.
Yeah, so they flew over a couple of times.
Asked if we were all right.
Yeah, checked on us. Yeah.
So that's the.
But the other interesting thing was, I almost forgot this, as I said, we were in this horseshoe lagoon, which was very narrow entry into it. And so when they finished, the pirate said, "You'll leave now. You leave, go." And so I said, "Well, we can't leave." And why you not leave? And I said, "Well, we can't leave because we can't see where we're going." "You leave as soon as you can see it. When are you seeing?" And I said, "Well, it won't be until daylight. We'll be able to see where the opening is." "Right. You leave at what time?"
They're ordering you out, but what time are you going?
About 7 o'clock in the morning. We'll probably be able to see. "You leave at 7 o'clock in the morning." Okay. We will.
Look, the important thing, you guys, is that you're able to laugh about it now, afterwards. That's the important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
we,
really is.
we survived.
Yeah.
A lot of people, don't.
As I said,
unfortunately.
at the time when they first came on board, I thought, yeah, this is the end. I said goodbye to Baz. And
Horrible place to be.
but yeah.
No, good on you for sharing that information with the world. Thank you.
Yes, a big thank you to the beautiful Roz and Bazza Captain for sharing that story. It will live now forever. What an adventure, what a journey. Fair winds and following seas, and may all your travels be safe ones. A big cheer from us sailing on Anacam.